Hello, this is Law and Omen.
Hello, welcome.
It's so weird because we're in the same room.
Yeah, this is very strange.
Yeah, we've just spoken for like the past hour. I don't have anything more to say to you. We can just jump in. I'm kidding. We're drinking red wine today.
It's been a while.
And a very long time. Since we first started the podcast.
Yes.
That's weird.
It's been so long.
We have not recorded live together since then. And if you hear us picking things up and putting things down, that's fine.
Yeah.
Mind your business.
You should be used to it by now.
We just recorded our acceptance video for the APVA Awards. Yeah, so we just recorded it, our acceptance thingy.
Or if we win.
In case we win, which neither one of us thinks we will. But
No.
A girl can dream.
Yeah. And it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. And we haven't seen each other in forever.
Way too long.
I guess I am going to start. Unless there's anything else you want to add.
No.
Okay. The disclaimer. The following stories contain graphic content and might not be suitable for everyone. The sources I use to find the information will be listed below. Everything I say is my own opinion unless it is stated as fact. And obviously I mean no disrespect towards anyone I speak about. In today's case, I am going to cover the murder of Susanna Magdalena van der Linde. So van der Linde was her married name and her maiden name was Kotze. So she was born Susanna Magdalena Kotze. She was born in 1926 in Magaliesburg, West Rand, Gauteng, South Africa, obviously. And as usual, tragically, not enough information about the victim exists. We certainly know that later in life she married Kristin van der Linde and the couple had 3 children together. And by 1972, Kristin van der Linde worked as the chief technician in the orthopedic workshop at the Red Cross Children's Hospital in Rondebosch, Cape Town. In September 1974, Susanna answered a telephone call. On the other line was a young woman who informed her that she was having an affair with her husband. So, Kristin. More than that, she claimed that the two of them were madly in love and that they actually saw each other every single day. And Susanna just hung up the phone. A few weeks later, the woman would call again. This time, however, the two women agreed on a place to meet face to face. Early in October 1974, they met in Belleville. Susanna met 19-year-old Marlene Lindberg. 19. By this time, Susanna and Kristin already had 3 children. They were in their 40s. Susanna made it very clear that she was not going to divorce her husband because they have 3 children together. Allegedly also adding that she didn't mind having to play second fiddle as long as Marlene was happy to do the same. So she was happy for him to, have his little trysts with Marlene. She was just not getting a divorce, which makes sense. I'm assuming that she was a housewife. And I think their kids were a little bit older because you'll see the one was definitely working already. Okay. But nonetheless, if you don't have a problem with it, then you don't have to divorce your your husband, I guess. So the two seemingly went their separate ways. Then, tragedy struck on Monday, the 4th of November, 1974. Kristin was unable to get a hold of Susanna in the morning, and he became a bit concerned and decided to call his daughter to ask her if she would go and check on her mother during her lunch break. So she was working, I think, at Tygerberg Hospital or something like that. Don't know what she did, though. The van der Linde's daughter went to her parents' home at around 1 p.m. and knocked on the door a few times. And there was no response. She obviously grew a little bit concerned and decided to look through one of the windows to see if she could spot anything out of the ordinary. And that was when she was met by the most shocking sight. Her mother's body was lying lifeless on the ground. When the police...
It's a sign of the police.
When the police brought van der Linde, Christian, home to identify his wife, he casually turned the body with his foot, apparently, and said that it was his wife.
Excuse me?
This was reported at the time by the police officers present as appearing callous and almost as if he was expecting it.
Yeah.
That is very callous. Why are you touching her with your feet?
Even if
she's
animal,
dead.
I wouldn't touch it with my foot. I would
turn
be
it
careful
over
with my
yes.
hands because it's a what?
It's still. I understand she's not alive anymore. It's not. Her essence isn't in her anymore. But still, that's so disrespectful.
Yeah, and if it's your partner, you'd be like, "Oh, what's is she okay? Like, what happened?" You know, you'd be so concerned and be like, the cop should be saying, "No, don't touch the body."
Exactly.
Kind of thing. They should be like,
exactly.
And of course, everybody reacts differently and stuff. But to use your foot to be like, "What is this thing
weird,
on the floor?" Oh, yes, that's my wife.
Yeah, I use my foot to touch things that I really don't want to touch.
Yeah, like if there's a bug that I want to flip on, like right way around, then I use like my foot, maybe.
Exactly.
But not like someone I love.
It is weird behavior. I fully agree. Susanna was beaten up and had died from 6 stab wounds, mainly in the chest area. She also had a gas gun, and that was stolen. So police immediately started their investigation and quickly had a prime suspect. Witnesses saw, quote, a crippled colored man, unquote, in the area on at least 2 prior occasions. This man had knocked on Susanna's door one day asking for money, and she told him that she didn't have any, and she closed the door. A few days or weeks later, Susanna saw the same man approach her house again, and she obviously got scared, and she decided to call the police. During that time in the 1970s, there was still apartheid in South Africa, so no questions were asked. Obviously, this man shouldn't be in this white area. The police came, picked him up, and beat him, basically.
That's awful.
Rattled by this experience, Susanna requested that Christian buy a gun for her to keep in the house in case of an emergency. But for at least a week after the murder, the man had seemingly vanished, this man that they were looking for. They couldn't find him. During the investigation, the police also became aware of the affair that Christian was having with Marlene. Marlene had since gone to Johannesburg and was staying at her uncle's house in Bryanston. So you can assume that, the affair kind of ended.
Yeah.
At around 7:30 in the morning, on the 13th of November 1974, Lieutenant Ronald Fourie of the Brixton Murder and Robbery Squad in Johannesburg went to pay Marlene a visit. Obviously, they were working in conjunction with the police in Cape Town. So he went to go and pay Marlene a visit at her uncle's house, and he asked if she would accompany him down to the station just to, answer a few questions. And on the way to the police station, Marlene confessed to the affair. Basically, right away, she said, they had an affair and that they were really, really in love during this time. She added that she had been expecting the police to contact her ever since she first heard about the murder of Susanna van der Linde from her mother. They asked her if she knew anything about the man that had been spotted around the area. And she said no, she didn't know anything about him. She didn't know who he was. But interestingly, before the murder, an engineering student had reported that a pistol was stolen from his room in the boarding house where he lived behind St. Paul's Church in Rondebosch. So I think Marlene was also staying in the same, either she just had friends there and she would frequent this boarding house, or she also stayed there after she moved out from her parents' house. His fellow residents had suspected him, He had gotten the pistol because he was a victim of crime in the boarding house. His fellow residents had suspected him of stealing a portable radio, as he was the newest addition to the boarding house, and thus everyone suspected him.
Yeah.
So his pistol disappeared, and like I said, he reported the theft to the police and blamed no other than Marlene. He also told police that she asked him to shoot Susanna or to lend her his pistol so that she would be able to get rid of Susanna. So when asked about this during her interview with the police, Marlene admitted to saying that, to asking him for the pistol so that she could kill Susanna, but she said that it was just a joke. It was just said in jest.
I'm guilty of this, so might as well make a joke about being guilty about this.
Exactly. Right. Lieutenant Roland Ferry noted that she did appear unnaturally nervous at times during their interview, so he kept on pushing her. And after a few hours of interviewing her, Marlene finally broke down and told the lieutenant that she had hired the man known as Martinez to murder Susanna. So this crippled man that the people saw. But she denied being present during the murder, and according to her, she simply drove him to the van der Linde's residence and waited in the car or drove off while he was committing the crime. Marlene was promptly arrested, and not long after, the police managed to track Martinez down, thanks to Marlene, who completely rolled over and gave the police his location, naturally. When the police arrested Martinez, they found the stolen pistol as well as the gas pistol Susanna made Christian buy her, which is so ironic because she made him buy her the pistol because she saw Martinez at her doorstep. When asked why he hadn't simply, tossed the guns away, got rid of the evidence, he said that it was very dangerous to just throw guns away. You can't just, that's very dangerous. What if someone picks it up and uses it?
What if the wrong person picks it up and murders someone?
And so their tale would start to unravel. To give a bit of backstory to who Marlene Lindberg was, because this is just a sad thing that's making me so angry. There's so much backstory to Marlene and the childhood that she had, but nothing about Susanna, about the actual victim. There's nothing that I could find. I would love it if someone knew of something and they could send it. But as often is the case, the victim is kind of forgotten and it all becomes about this perpetrator and the life that they lived before committing this crime. Yeah. I understand in a sense of wanting to understand them psychologically where it went wrong and stuff like that, but it's still such a shame that the victim doesn't get remembered as detailed as the perpetrator does. Yeah. Marlene Lindberg was born on the 15th of October 1955. Her parents met each other when they were young, and when they first got married, they couldn't afford to live in their own home. I think they married into, I wouldn't say financial turmoil, but neither one of them really had money, and they married each other and also didn't have money together. Yeah. So Marlene's grandfather, Marlene's father's father, offered up his garage for the couple to start their life in. And the couple would eventually have 5 children while living in the garage. They really started their life together there.
If you're already low on cash to have 5 kids.
I mean,
it's a different time.
I was just about to say, how, I guess, accessible were contraceptives back then. I literally have no idea.
Yeah, and it's probably
frowned upon
with Christianity as well being, it's murder.
Because also Marlene's family, they were very conservative. Okay. They weren't churchgoers, but they were very conservative, so probably didn't believe in contraception. So eventually Marlene's father managed to secure a good position, and the family could move out of the garage and into a home of their own. It was said that Marlene's parents were not very affectionate and did not really have a strong bond with their children. Marlene, and I also heard that they showed different amounts of affection to different children. And Marlene allegedly was the one with the weakest bond with her parents. Marlene also grew up in a very conservative household, as I said, and they weren't, like I said, they weren't churchgoers, but they were still very conservative. She didn't have many friends because her parents isolated the family, which is also very abusive. Like, you can't isolate someone like that. Marlene did, however, do very well at school. When Marlene became a teenager, she decided to join a local church group.
Hey, tomorrow Sunday we're going to go to church.
Church. It's my Boston accent coming out.
Take the car, go to church.
Oh my word. So she decided she decided to join a local church group, and I guess this is her sort of pushing the boundaries of her reclusive parents. Marlene, despite performing well academically, left school when she finished Standard 8, so grade 10. So in other words, she was 16 years old. But I mean, once again, back at those days, women's education wasn't really an important thing in society, and even if they did finish school and go on to do jobs and stuff, it was either a nurse or a teacher or a secretary. You know, it was kind of
jobs.
So she was 16 years old, and luckily she managed to find a pretty good job soon after leaving school. She began her first job as a clerical assistant or receptionist at the Red Cross Children's Hospital in Rondebosch. Does that sound familiar? I bet it does, because that's where she met Christian. Sorry, it's the wind. So that's where she met Christian, because like I said, he was the chief technician. And he was 46 years old when they met. She was 16.
Gross. He's literally old enough to be his kid.
Oh, for sure. He's old enough to be an old dad. Like, not old, you know, as in, but an older dad. So Marlene said that for her, the attraction was immediate. But from all accounts, the relationship seemed to have remained platonic for at least the first year after the initial meeting. At first, their relationship was described as a father-daughter relationship, which is disgusting in retrospect, I know. She was drawn to Christian, a person whom she saw as a being... What? A person who she saw as being warm and... as being a warm and friendly father figure. Jeez.
1 glass of wine.
Oh, that was probably 1 glass of wine, because these wine glasses are so small. She later recalled, quote, "He said, 'Welcome,' and my heart beat faster." He literally basically just said hello. Also, we need to take into consideration how young she was. Yeah. She was 16.
No, I was going to say, like, that's obviously her daddy issue.
Exactly.
Looking for a parent to love her, and she didn't get it from her own parents, so here's someone who... her dad at work.
Yeah.
Gross.
And soon, the relationship would develop into something much more. Neither one of them would say who made the first move, but seeing that one of them was a literal child and the other one was a fucking fully fledged adult, I'm going to blame one person and one person only, and that is Christian.
Yeah. Like, even if she made an advance, you are an adult and she is a child.
Exactly, and I know it was a different time, but he is still a middle-aged man. Yeah. And this was
with children of his own.
With children that was probably the same age as her.
Exactly, that's so disgusting. And it doesn't matter, like, what time period it is, and, like, predatory behavior is predatory behavior.
We just know better now, for sure, but that it was still gross back then.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, the pair started their affair when Marlene was just 17 years old. That is why I'm saying she is a child. This is gross as well. The two of them would have their little get-togethers during work hours as well as after hours, and apparently some of their frequented places were Paarden-Eiland Industrial Area and Rondebosch Commons.
Romantic.
So it was literally basically an open piece of land with a view of Table Mountain. It basically, like, it was in public.
Like, you're not even going to
a hotel,
or something. A motel even.
And it's not like you couldn't afford it, you know what I mean? And they go in the park somewhere. next to dog shit. I don't know.
Even the basement at work or whatever seems better.
He surely has an office.
Yeah. Like a supply closet. Like rather a broom than like...
Outside.
People pee everywhere outside.
Yeah, and no. Like I said, it's weird, but I don't know if this maybe added to the excitement for them. Yeah. I don't get it. So Christian basically said that he couldn't resist Marlene anymore and almost made it seem like she was this irresistible temptress. She was 17 years old. Fuck off. But he made it very clear, apparently, that he would not leave his wife or family for her, and that he would always put his children first. He also apparently told her that they wouldn't work together, or work out together.
I was just going to ask.
They wouldn't work out together because their age gap was too big for them to be life partners.
But not too much for him to still sleep with her.
No.
You disgusting old perverts.
So that's not how Marlene saw it, though. She fully believed that, as she told both Susanna and the officer, that they were in love, and that Christian would eventually leave his family and start a new life with her. She allegedly became obsessed with this idea. So the two began their affair in April 1973 and continued seeing each other throughout the year, but early in 1974, the intimacy stopped because Susanna had been getting anonymous phone calls telling her that Christian was having an affair. This was even before Marlene phoned Susanna. Really? This was anonymous. She had been getting multiple anonymous phone calls. And it could be people from the hospital telling her what's happening. Or maybe it could be... exactly, that. Or it could have been Marlene that was already, trying to start some friction between the two of the spouses.
Why she didn't get pregnant?
True.
Because, she's younger, so it should be easier. You're more fertile.
I don't know. She had been getting anonymous phone calls telling her that Christian was having an affair, and this made Christian want to break off him and Marlene's relationship, actually. So, by all accounts, it does seem like he wanted to continue being married to Susanna.
Yeah.
In July 1974, Marlene told Christian that she was planning on leaving Cape Town. And this was in a bid to force his hand so that he would initiate a divorce with Susanna. She was not trying to really make it clear that it was her way or the highway, basically. But obviously that didn't work because he didn't leave Susanna, nor was he planning on doing so, according to him. And then we know by September that Marlene had made contact with Susanna, and by October the two women had met, and Susanna basically laid it out how it was. Around this time, Marlene met Martinez Charles Kuchu, who was 33. Kuchu. Choegoe. So Martinez came to the orthopedic workshop to have an artificial limb fitted after having lost a leg in a motorcar accident. He was unemployed and his disabilities, both physical and social, had destroyed his self-esteem. He could barely write his own name and wore tattered clothes. And this was a perfect target for Marlene, obviously. So she started to formulate a plan whilst almost studying this man who had been so down on his luck. She really, really preyed on a vulnerable person.
Yeah.
She started digging into who Martinez was and found that he lived in retreat and that he spent a lot of his time at a pawn shop in the area. Not porn as in pawning things for other things. Porn as in, yes, that porn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's it? Like a sex shop?
Like a sex shop. Like an adult shop, basically.
So not like somewhere
but
where they...
every, outlet, everything I researched called it a pawn shop. I'm like, why would you call it that? But okay, I'm gonna,
Well, I suppose maybe in those days it was just like VHSs and stuff.
Probably.
Maybe there wasn't like the toys and stuff that they've got nowadays.
But Cleopatra invented the vibrator.
Cleopatra?
Yeah, she had bees in a box.
Oh my gosh.
into a lot of obscure things. I honestly think I heard it on Ologies. I don't know.
I just love how serious. She had bees in the box.
I really thought that was common knowledge, though.
And I love ancient Egypt and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I've never heard that in my life. That is amazing.
She just put bees in a box. Did you know that there's a type of bee, I think it's in either Australia or New Zealand, that doesn't sting at all? Like, it doesn't have a stinger even.
That's very unusual for Australia. You'd think they'd have twice the size stinger.
I know. And they make honey, but their honey cones don't look the same.
Oh.
Yeah.
Weird.
Very cool. But they're also small. They're tiny and they're darker than a normal bee. Oh. Weird. I really like bees.
I can tell. I was just about to say, how do you have so many bee facts?
I really like bees. One day when I'm old and retired, I will have a beehive. Okay, so she started digging into who Martinez was and found that he lived in Retreat and that he spent a lot of time at a pawn shop in his area. So she wrote a note to him saying that he should contact her if he wanted to earn some quote-unquote good money. And she left the note with an employee at this adult shop that he frequented. So, of course, the note worked and Martinez went to see Marlene where she worked. When he arrived at the workshop, Marlene gave him R1 and asked him to meet her at Rondebosch Town Hall at 7 p.m. that evening. Now, I don't know how much R1 was back in those days, but I'm assuming it's probably equivalent to, I don't know, 50 Rand maybe. Oh, yeah. When they met up there, Marlene gave Martinez a bottle of gin and a portable radio before telling him that she wanted him to kill someone for her. He was shocked and initially very hesitant because if he got caught, they would hang him because this was still the time that hangings took place. And also he's a colored man in apartheid.
Also, I'm sorry, it's going to be more than R1 of radio and gin.
I know.
What?
Martinez wasn't a hardened criminal or anything like that. He barely had a record. Only one incident where he had been caught with a dangerous weapon in his possession. But Marlene knew that this man was most likely desperate enough to do almost anything at the promise of money. The day after Marlene had asked him to do this, Martinez arrived at the doorstep of the van der Linde's home, fully intending on warning Susanna about Marlene's plan. But when Susanna opened the door, Martinez froze and pretended to ask for money. And we know now that Susanna said that she didn't have any money and then she closed the door. A week later, Marlene was trying to persuade Martinez again, this time saying that if he did this for her, that she would fast-track him getting his prosthetic leg by putting him at the top of the queue for the manufacturing of his prosthetic, which is so many levels of fucked up from her.
Wrong.
This, understandably, was a very enticing promise, and Martinez went back to Susanna's neighborhood, and when he arrived at the van der Linde's house, his conscience once again got the better of him and he simply walked past the house. This still did not deter Marlene from her devious plan, and she would not be derailed. She wrote a second letter to Martinez and again left it at his frequented adult shop. And in this letter, she told him that he had to get this done and that he must use a bread knife if he has to.
Jeez.
She also said that he must call her, and so he did. And as they were talking, Marlene now promised him that if he got the job done, that she would give him a brand new car. Where she would get this brand new car, nobody fucking knows, because she didn't have the money for it. But still, he didn't want to go through with it, and this prompted Marlene to offer herself up on a silver platter. And she said that if he would murder Susanna, that she would sleep with him. A few weeks later, Marlene handed in her resignation at the hospital, probably thinking that she would be the next Mrs. van der Linde. She then picked up Martinez and where he was staying in Retreat, and he brought a hammer with him, and the two made their way to the van der Linde's home. On his way to their front door, Susanna spotted Martinez through the window and instantly recognized him as the man who had asked her for money previously. This scared her, and as I mentioned earlier, she called the police. And Martinez was subsequently beaten to a pulp by them. The police dumped him back in retreat after this. Sorry, that was my phone. After this ordeal is when Marlene asked the engineering student with the pistol if he would lend it to her, and when he said no, she asked him if he would kill her boyfriend's wife for her. She was very open about not wanting Susanna around anymore, and in a small excerpt from the books page by Vivian Haller, she recalls her encounter with Marlene. Quote, "One late afternoon in 1974, when I was 22, I went with my boyfriend to visit his brother, Rob, in the boarding house where he lived behind St. Paul's Church in Rondebosch. Rob hadn't been in the boarding house long, and his initial relationship with his co-residents was bedeviled by the fact that soon after he moved in, someone's portable radio had been stolen. And as he was the newest resident, suspicion fell on him. Rob, an engineering student, had also been a victim of crime in the boarding house. He had a pistol, which he kept locked in his wardrobe, and one day it disappeared. We hadn't been in Rob's room long when a slim young fellow resident called Marlene strolled in. She had shoulder-length hair, lots of eye makeup, and was wearing a Truworths mini dress. My boyfriend and I didn't know her from a bar of soap, but this didn't stop her from perching on Rob's desk, hauling out a nail file to do her nails, and telling us about her very unsatisfactory relationship with her older married boss. She was sick and tired of the situation because he would not leave his wife for her. Quote, "I told him straight, I wished his wife would just drop dead, and I meant it. Now," unquote. Now she was thinking of leaving Cape Town and driving to Joburg to start a new life. Quote, "I got an Anglia and it goes," unquote, she told us. "My eyes were out on stalks. I'd not met anyone like her before." 2 weeks or so later, a murder made headlines in the local newspapers. One Susanna van der Linde of Belleville had been murdered, pistol whipped and stabbed to death with a pair of scissors. Within hours, Rob told us the woman was Marlene's lover's wife. It all came out at the trial. Marlene had stolen the radio as a bribe for her co-accused, Martinez Kuchu, who was supposed to kill van der Linde. Marlene had also stolen Rob's pistol. Rob had suspected Marlene was the thief because, we heard, he had declined her request to shoot van der Linde. When he reported the theft to police, he pointed her out. A detective went to interview Marlene in her room and then went back empty-handed to Rob's room and said with a big smile, quote, "She's pretty, hey?" unquote. It turned out Rob knew Marlene much better than he'd let on at the time, and he had taken a number of topless pictures of her, which he sold to the Sunday Times when her murder trial began, unquote, the whole section. Which also, fuck you, Rob.
Like, revenge porn is such an old thing.
Yeah, I get it. She's not a good person, but still, like,
yeah, that's really gross behavior on your part.
Don't do stuff like that, honestly. So Marlene stole the pistol and effectively got away with it. She again drove to retreat and told Martinez she was leaving to Joburg and asked him if he would accompany her to say goodbye to Christian. He agreed, and as they were driving, he quickly figured out that this was not actually her plan. Because Marlene pulled out a gun, the gun that she stole, and told him that she expected him to follow through with their agreement. Once again, they stopped outside the van der Linde's residence, this time at 9 a.m. on the 4th of November, 1974. Marlene claimed that she only got out of the car, rang the doorbell, and then left Martinez standing there with the gun while she jumped back in her car and sped off. So she didn't know what had happened when she left. Martinez told a different story, though. He said that Marlene did indeed ring the doorbell, but she didn't leave the driveway. She stood beside him at the doorstep, and this was later confirmed when a neighbor said that she spotted Marlene's empty car outside the van der Linde's home that morning. When Susanna opened the door, she obviously recognized Marlene, and then she saw the man that had been, quote-unquote, lurking around her house, and she was obviously, this was not good news, and she tried to make a run for it and probably slammed the door behind her, but Marlene managed to trip her. She then, trigger warning, she then pistol whipped Susanna while she was on the floor from falling over after being tripped, and she kept hitting her until she was almost unconscious. Marlene then instructed Martinez to strangle Susanna, but she then spotted a pair of scissors on the table nearby and grabbed them. She gave them to Martinez and told him to stab her, and he admitted to following her orders and said that he stabbed her in the chest 3 times. Now, a pathologist would confirm that Susanna had been stabbed 6 times, so Marlene was almost certainly the person who had stabbed Susanna the other 3 times.
Yeah, I can picture it.
Me too.
Because I was thinking when you first said the 6 earlier, like I was thinking like how many times that is. So if he only stabbed her 3 times, I can almost picture her pushing him off, taking the scissors herself, and make sure she's dead, so she's out the way.
And that is such a intimate way of killing someone as well. Stabbing someone is one of the most intimate way, and I hate using the word intimate to describe someone who's actually committing violence against another person, but it is because you have to be so close to that person. You actually physically, and especially in the chest, you're looking at them in the eyes while you're doing this. You are seeing them die. I have no doubt, me personally, that it was Marlene that also stabbed her, 100%. The fact that she was so hell-bent on making this happen, to me, leads to the fact that she did this as well.
I can almost imagine she waited until he actually stabbed her first so she could blame it on him. And then she's like, well, now's my chance. And just like getting that.
Interesting that you said that as well. After Susanna was murdered, Marlene grabbed the gas gun, the one Susanna asked Christian to buy. And in the gun was a pellet with dye. So I assume that that's what a gas gun is. It has pellets and it has, I don't know, dye in it. And she probably didn't know that it was a real gun. But, you know, who can be sure? I don't know how much she knew about guns. But she pointed the gun at Martinez and shot him. What? When I listened to the episode on this, on True Crime South Africa with Nicole. Shout out, Nicole. She said that she also said she doesn't know if Marlene knew whether or not this was an actual gun, but she could have kind of, I wouldn't say planned it like this, but she could have maybe thought that she could make this look like a intruder situation, and that Susanna fought back by shooting him with her gun, you know, and she could kind of make it seem like it was nothing to do with her, and both parties are dead, and she's just getting away with double murder, basically. So, and all this at the end of the day did was cover him in the green dye. Also, that does compromise him at the end of the day, because I mean, now he could be spotted with green dye on him, and like, oh, well, Susanna's freaking gun with the gun dye thing is missing. This guy, I saw that guy with dye on him or ink on him. Maybe he has something to do with her murder.
Yeah, and he's quote the wrong color, and he's got a disability. He's very easy to spot, even without the dye.
Exactly. So. Afterwards, she drove Martinez back to his place and made her way to Joburg to quote-unquote visit her uncle. The trial of Marlene and Martinez began at the Cape Town Supreme Court on the 5th of March 1975. The trial drew hundreds of spectators who fought for seats in the packed courtroom. After a hearing which lasted 7 days, during which the state called more than 30 witnesses, the judge, Justice Demont, with a name like that you have to become a judge, and his 2 assessors deliberated overnight and returned verdicts of guilty for both accused. The court found no extenuating circumstances, and both were sentenced to death by hanging. 2 months later, the case was reopened on appeal, and in July 1975, the death sentences were set aside. Marlene was sentenced to 20 years imprisonment and Martinez to 15. At the time, Marlene had been the youngest woman to be convicted of murder in South Africa, and after her trial, a law would be passed in SA, in South Africa, called the Marlene Lenberg Clause. The law prevents convicted criminals from profiting off of their crimes in any way, because Marlene was allegedly planning on selling her story from jail so that she would have a nice nest egg to return to.
That's like such an American serial killer.
Oh, that is.
Which one? There's one.
Ed Kemper.
Was it Ed Kemper?
But Ed Kemper went on to read children's books, didn't he? Yeah, record children's books. Oh, weird. So Martinez served 11 years and was released in June of 1986, and he became an evangelical preacher. While Marlene was paroled in December of the same year. Martinez died in a car accident in 1992, so not even long after he was released, like 6 years after he was released, on the N7 near Nieuwerus in the Western Cape. Marlene used her time in prison to study music, computer programming, and psychology. When she was released, she continued a relationship she had started with a fellow inmate. I think they were also released, most likely. And she opened a beauty salon and a modeling school. Marlene ended her own life in October 2015, 5 days before her 60th birthday. She had suffered from osteoporosis for years and had also been diagnosed with breast cancer. I think she was diagnosed when she was 59. Why did I say that? So weird. 59. She could no longer take the severe pain she was in and committed suicide alone at her home. Kristin van der Linde strangely supported Marlene throughout the trial. And he was reported saying, this infuriated me. When I read it, I just wanted to slap him. Quote, "Men have had mistresses since time immemorial and will continue to have them. Many of these relationships flower into something really beautiful, as happened to me and Marlene, who I called Sweetie."
I'm sorry, it's just the trial of your murdered wife.
Yeah, I don't give a frick what you called her.
And it doesn't matter if men have had mistresses forever, it's still wrong, and it's still awful.
Unless it is agreed by both parties,
but then
that's
it wouldn't
wrong.
Be a mistress.
Exactly. Well, it would because
open relationship.
Oh, true. That's true. Exactly.
A mistress is some underhanded secret.
Yeah.
So screw you, you cheating piece of shit.
Yeah. Why would you do that to someone that you supposedly love in the first place?
Yeah.
So her love for me drove her to kill my wife. But how does that make me evil? Unquote.
If you didn't cheat in the first place, your wife would still be alive.
Yeah,
dumbass.
If you didn't cheat in the first place, you wouldn't have a mistress that would want to kill your wife.
And if you didn't date children,
you
know,
they would maybe have the mental capacity to, either understand that they are, as Susanna put it, playing second fiddle, and they either have to be okay with that or they have to move on.
Yeah.
I don't understand what you don't understand.
Yeah.
He would also regularly visit Marlene in prison, like once a month or so, and he apparently publicly committed to doing that, until he stopped visiting and claimed that he never wanted to see her again. I do believe his children kind of stopped contacting him, kind of cut him off, and he died a lonely man in 1983.
Good.
If you think about it, he wasn't even that old yet, because in 1973, when he started the relationship with Marlene, he was only 47. So this means he was only 57 when he died. That's quite young. Yeah. After the trial, he moved to Krugersdorp so that he could visit his wife's grave on her family's farm in the Magaliesberg mountains every day, and he expressed remorse for ever having met Marlene Lenberg.
Meeting her, that's probably her fault.
Yeah.
Because why would he take responsibility?
He couldn't help it because he was just, she was a temptress and he just couldn't say no to her wildly ways. I don't know. She was literally 17 years old.
Yeah. I feel really bad for Martinez getting, like taken advantage of, and having his, I can't think of words. Not his vulnerabilities, his
insecurities, or his
all those things that he struggled with, and like disability and everything that he's trying to deal with, having that used against him. Awful.
His struggles, like his exactly. Like, she 100% knew what she was doing, first of all. And there was also talk that maybe Christian kind of had a sway in Marlene's decision to want to get rid of Susanna. But, I mean, by his account, he said he never wanted to leave his wife and whatever. But, I mean, he's a lying sack of shit. He probably lied. Well, no, not probably. He lied to his wife in the beginning of their affair, during the beginning of their affair. So, anyway, let's pause. It's Monday, and it's just me. I am sure you noticed that we had some technical difficulties, some sound difficulties. I think that comes with recording live. We shared a mic, and for some reason, Kristin's voice went in and out quite a bit, and during her story, it kind of just got worse. We tried re-recording today during our lunch breaks, which is also why I'm recording now during my lunch break. So we decided to re-record. While we were recording, I downloaded a sample of the audio, and it didn't sound bad. It sounded workable. And when I downloaded it officially and listened to it, it was not so great. So we are going to be back with a full episode again on Sunday, the 14th of August. So we will catch you then. In the meantime, you can go and have a look at our social media pages at Law and Omen. We also have a website, lawandOmen.com. Kristin also added some merch for us on there if you want to check that out. And we have something else. What is it? Yes, we have an email address, info@lawandOmen.com. You can send us any recommendations on there, and roosters are out. We hope you have a great week, and love you, bye.